Well, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. I'm very excited. It seems that there's quite a few people, quite a few of you here. This is a topic that gets discussed quite a bit. You know, anytime we consult with our clients, you know, conversation starts with how do we get more leads, how do we get better quality leads, and then how do we convert these leads into customers. And that's quite important to organizations because the ROI is driven from that. And I've spent the better part of the decade really focusing on organizations who are looking to transform the digital marketing programs into high-performing capabilities across legal, high-tech, financial services for organizations like American Express, JP Morgan, New York Life, Dell, and a wide variety of other organizations. And this is a really exciting time. Things are changing, and digital marketing capabilities are coming together. There's just so much more available, and then the competition is so much more as well. The mind share that you used to get a few years ago, it's a bit more difficult to get that mind share with the customer. So you've got to get better at executing demand generation, and in doing so, you've got to continually iterate and improve so that you can continue to get the results that you desire. So, sorry, just having technical difficulties. So here's a stat. You know, 88 billion was spent on generating website traffic. Just think about that number. But then when you consider that only 22% of the companies who were essentially satisfied with the conversion rates, you think about how much was wasted in that statistic. I think the challenge really we run into quite often is it's not really a traffic problem, it's a conversion problem. So a lot of organizations spend a lot of money driving traffic to their website, and with very little clue around how that traffic actually converts, or having programs in place, even if they're tracking conversion, programs in place which will improve conversion. So there's a definite area of opportunity in improving conversion to generate demand. It's really important to understand where the website actually positions itself. There's a lot of programs which organizations run, from social media to email marketing to a variety of other programs. So the website is a critical asset. From 10 years ago to today, the major shifts that have occurred in the new world where there's a new buyer is that the buyer's in control. And when the buyer's in control, quite often they would spend an enormous amount of time finding the right organizations to work with even before they start talking to you. And they use tools such as the website and other capabilities to actually drive engagement. So they would actually get to the website, look for content, understand your positioning better before they even talk to you. So the role of sales is important, but now since the buyer's in control, the role of your marketing assets are even more important. And I think that's where the website sits in. It's a capability that organizations really need to get right to generate the right amount of demand. And generally around websites, what we're seeing is the average rate of conversion is low. Financial services is a little higher, but as you go down the list, high-tech organizations, primarily the B2B organizations, the conversion rates are not satisfactory. And as I discussed earlier, the amount that organizations are spending to bring customers to the website versus converting them, the ratios are very, very, skewed, I guess. So when you think about how do you generate demand and how do you convert traffic to customers, there's some things that should, get you thinking. One statistic indicates that you have 0 to 8 seconds to make a compelling headline landing page. You have 8 seconds to get the visitor's attention. If you don't, you're essentially going to lose the individual. And think about this. 96% of the visitors that come to your website are not ready to buy yet. So the question becomes, how do you engage with them? How do you actually build a relationship with them? How do you nurture them so that when they are ready to buy, you can actually convert them? So just driving leads perhaps is important, but then what do you do with the leads is perhaps even more important. And when you start to think about videos and other type of content which can help improve conversion, you have to think about types of content you can use to actually drive conversion, and think about performance of your assets and technology that can impact conversion. So there's a wide variety of things to consider, all the way from catching someone's attention to understanding who these visitors are, to the type of content to use, and then getting your technology to work the right way. And if you don't, it can all fall apart. So given all of this, how do you generate demand from your website? So how do you actually make it happen? And that's what we're really here to talk about. What is this road to success to really drive that conversion? So there's a lot of things to consider. In this conversation, we will focus on 4 areas. And these 4 areas will break down into integrated demand generation. So how do you generate demand from an integrated manner? How do you get your SEO, SEM, demand generation programs to drive and integrate with your website, to integrate with your CRM and marketing automation platforms? And if you do that appropriately, if you do that effectively, you will see demand. You will see the right amount of conversion. The other area to consider is contextual engagement. So how do you get the right content and information to the user, to the prospect, so that they are engaged, they're reading the right content which is relevant to them? So how do you get engagement through being contextual? And that's key to driving conversion. Testing and optimization. So how do you continue to improve the experience so that you continue to give the right amount of content, the right message, so that the right person is getting the right message at the right time, and you convert a prospect to a lead, to a customer, and ultimately have the right technology to support you. So these are 4 key areas that, in our experience, that if organizations start to focus on, they will start to see dramatic results. If your demand generation programs are integrated all the way from what you're doing with the top of the funnel all the way down to your CRM programs and so on, and then you're engaging in a contextual manner, your content is targeted to who the user is, who the buyer is, depending on the stage in the buying life cycle they're in, your experience is engaging. If you're testing continuously, if you have the right technologies. There are many more things, as I said, but these are the top 4 areas that typically when we talk to our customers or all the work that we do, it leads us to these 4 key areas that typically lead to conversion on your websites. So let's talk about integrated demand generation. How do you drive demand by integrating your demand generation programs? So customer acquisition, it doesn't happen in an instant. There's a buying life cycle that needs to be targeted from start to end, from need recognition all the way to making a decision, to engaging with the prospect. There's a journey. So understanding that buying life cycle and that journey is critical to demand generation. And the website influences in a variety of different ways. It influences perhaps the decision and the engagement stage, less so than information search and evaluating options. So understanding where the website sits in that buyer's journey is critical to getting the right information to the buyer at the right time to drive conversion. So if you were to consider the buyer's journey all the way from, a buyer starts to drive awareness, searches for information, evaluates your product against competitors, purchases, may not purchase online on your website, may make the purchase offline, needs to be supported, and perhaps if the customer is a raving fan, they will buy from you and they will even recommend you to others. So how does the website actually support that buying life cycle? That's one of the fundamental questions that organizations should be asking themselves, as opposed to saying, well, we need a website that'll generate a lot of leads. The question to really ask yourself is, how do you, through the acquisition and retention journey, wrap the website across all those stages so that you can make the buyer, you can enable the buyer to actually make.
Welcome to GoToWebinar, Web Events Made Easy.
Comes to your website, searching for information, evaluating your products, purchasing, makes the purchase, needs to be supported and unsold. Website plays a critical role. And the underlying technology that drives the website, CMS, plays just as critical a role. So when you think about your demand generation programs, whether it's SEO, social media, and so on, thinking about that acquisition journey and how each asset, and in this case, especially the website, fits into your journey is a critical step actually to think about conversion and actually driving leads and opportunities. So as you think about the integrated demand generation process that we spoke about, one of the questions that comes up is social media important? Well, in 2011, a survey done by Marketing Sherpa revealed that 56% of B2B marketers acquired new customers using social media. So social media is an amazing opportunity to engage with prospects across the buying life cycle. You can have conversations with prospects, and using it effectively with your website and with other assets, it can be very powerful. So social media is very powerful, and you can use approaches such as Twitter, can be used for lead generation with organic content or promotional content. Facebook, if it's relevant to your business, your customers are people like you and I, and they're on Facebook. And using other capabilities like SiteShare, LinkedIn, YouTube, Google. So really thinking about content distribution, thinking about the content that you have and how you distribute it across channels, in this case social channels, and actually engage with audiences is a great way to integrate that in social media into your demand generation programs and integrating them back to your website. SEO is critical to drive traffic, to drive the right type of users come to your site. If you build a beautiful house and there's no path to the house, then it's not going to do you a whole lot of good. So it's important to drive traffic to your assets so that that traffic actually converts to customers. And actually, this is the view that it ultimately gets built. So you have a customer's buying life cycle that we spoke of. There's awareness and interest. Customer wants to learn, they want to validate, or actually want to understand your offerings. They will ultimately make a purchase and then experience you as an organization. So the question becomes, across the buying life cycle, what are the things that you can do to actually integrate your capabilities in a manner that drives integrated demand generation? So at the top of the funnel, you can use a variety of approaches, from email campaigns to SEO to PR, paid search, whatever is relevant to drive that level of awareness and interest and drive that traffic to your website and other web properties. Use analytics to understand and learn about your prospects. Use marketing automation to take leads to actually nurture prospects through the buying life cycle. And again, push a lot of the traffic will be pushed back to your website. So the website is truly integrated all the way from top of the funnel to through the justify and validate and the purchase stages, and ultimately enabling that prospect to make that informed decision. The website is a critical asset. So thinking about the customer's buying life cycle, thinking about what campaigns you could run, and thinking about how the website integrates with your entire digital ecosystem would help you to better understand how your website can actually start to help you generate demand, the right quality of leads, the right volume of leads, and ultimately convert those leads to customers. So a key recommendation, again going back to the buying life cycle, we'll touch on this more a little later in the presentation, but mapping out the buying life cycle and thinking about all your assets and capabilities across that life cycle is critical to driving demand. So let's talk about contextual engagement. That was the second recommendation that we made in our agenda. So when you, and this should be no surprise, if you can get the right message to the right person at the right time, and nowadays they say around the right device, then you're engaging with that individual, the prospect, in the right way. And if you get the right information to them, you're going to convert them into leads and customers, more so than your competitors. There's a lot of information available. Mindshare isn't that much. So how do you use engagement in a manner that it's targeted and you get the right information to the right person at the right time to actually get customers? So understanding context. So context is all about understanding the customers, align with their expectations. So understanding how they buy across that buying life cycle and getting them the information that they need to make that informed decision. And ultimately, if you have context, you can drive engagement. You can align with their expectations. You can lead them down a particular journey. But we're seeing when we create contextual websites or some of the websites that are out there, the best of breed, we're finding that they're linking context to context. So they're not just putting out content for the sake of putting out content. What they try to understand is what is the context of the buyer or the individual coming to the site, and providing content which is relevant to them, personalizing that content for that individual. Understanding what channels they're coming from and aligning information towards that channel. Listening to them, so following that digital footprint. When they go across your site, they're reading information, and they're providing you an enormous amount of information and insight into their buying behavior. And if you're able to capture that and in a way automate the response mechanism, you're going to offer contextual information. So these are some of the things that contextual websites are doing, and they ultimately build commitment. They build commitments with customers. They get them the right information at the right time, and ultimately lead them down the path of conversion. So quite often B2B websites, I see engagements moving forward where content is being created, divorced against the context, not defining who the buyer is, what their journey is, and linking content to that. Quite often you end up with a pretty looking website, but you're not really driving leads. You're not really ultimately driving conversion. So the sites that are out there today, the first generation sites were informational. They moved to transactional. Where we are today, they're persuasive, where the website is a primary engagement channel for customers. When they come to your website, they need to be persuaded to actually convert. So if context is important, how do you get to context? There's a variety of ways. There's implicit, explicit, and external means. Visitors, as I mentioned earlier, provide a digital footprint when they're on your website. So if you could read their preferences, predispositions, you can understand what they're looking for, and if you have the right tools, you can actually start to track what's important to them and get them the right information. You can segment that customer base. Visitors will also supply a lot of information. If they register for a white paper, for example, they will tell you who they are, what they're looking for, and so on. And then you can also go out to externally supplied sources. So if someone from a Fortune 1000 company shows up to your website, you can look up their IP and bring that context back into your system, and you'll get information such as the location, the presence, the size of the organization, and a variety of even social data that can actually help you build a profile or a context to the customer, which in real time can be leveraged to actually target the customer. So, but it all starts by understanding what customers want, as I indicated earlier. So what you really need to master, in my opinion, is the buying life cycle. And the buying life cycle will give you that perspective of context. It will tell you what customers want, what stage they need, what information, and how are you going to better inform them to make that decision. So to map out the buying life cycle, you need to understand how the buying life cycle works. You need to segment your audience. You need to map messaging, and then you need the right platforms to make it happen. So again, touching on the buying life cycle, it's a series of stages that prospects go through to make a decision. Every organization has their own buying life cycle, but if you were to think about how a buyer buys, if you were marketing sits down with sales, with customer service, and even potentially with existing customers, it's not too difficult to map out how a need ultimately leads to a purchase decision and how an organization needs to service each stage of the buying life cycle on its website to actually drive that decision. And once you map out the buying life cycle, you can start to see what audiences come to your website and actually what segments actually are across that buying life cycle, what does segment A do versus segment B. So you can start to get the right messaging to the right people. And once you do that, you can start to understand criteria. So how does segment A move from the need recognition stage to the evaluation stage to the purchase decision stage? And once you start to map out the criteria, then you can start to actually map the content. You can take the content and map it against each stage of the buying life cycle per segment. And that will give you, in essence, your content strategy. So again, your content is linked to the context of the buyer. Per segment, you know at what stage they're making a buying decision. Your content can be linked with that, and that can ultimately drive content on your website. And essentially, this is where it comes down, what it comes down to. Your content strategy should be driven by the buying life cycle. The type of content that you offer should be really thought through in terms of what stage, what information is needed to make that informed decision, as opposed to just pulling out content that you may think might be useful. What ends up happening quite often is you create too much content, it's too confusing, and it's not relevant. So getting the right content, the right stage, really help inform that content strategy. And the type of content could vary across, from technical specifications, product catalogs, case studies. They inform different stages. For example, the case study might be quite important as a prospect searches for information, or they're evaluating options, or they're making that decision. Customer testimonial, perhaps later in the buying life cycle, might be quite important in actually enabling a buyer to make a decision. So how do you get that customer testimonial to the prospect at the right time? That's what it's all about, the right message to the right person at the right time. If you can get the testimonial when they're evaluating options and making decisions, you can actually tip them over, and that's what it's all about. So here's an example. Any B2B organization, in this case, a law firm, if a buyer is going through the buying life cycle, you can start to very easily map out who the buyer is across the various stages, how they make a decision. Quite often up front, they're asking some fundamental questions. For example, in this case, what are the risks they're exposed to? If it's employment law, what kind of employment issues do we protect ourselves against? And once they search for this information, hopefully you think about this information and provide that as top leadership. And then when they come to your website, you show them how you solve these problems. You help them in the evaluation process, really affirm to them that you're the right firm to work with. You provide testimonials and references and so on. And this is a simple way that you can map out your content strategy against the buying life cycle. This is very powerful because you're very focused, you're getting the right information as opposed to providing too much. And this is a more broader, all the way from thinking about what the strategy needs to be, what the messaging needs to be, and what are some of the capabilities you can use on your website, whether it's a blog or a webinar, and how CRM and the website need to be integrated across the buying life cycle to actually drive conversion. So going through an exercise such as this will get you context, will allow you to target content with that context, and then get the capabilities in place to actually execute against that. So once you have context, you can start to think about personalization. So you can think about, how do I get the right message to the right person at the right time? And personalization goes down the path of, really thinking about how do you understand context, how do you have the right tools to actually personalize that experience for the user. And if you can get an integrated view of personalization across channels, you will start to see better results. If questions asked, you segment and target your marketing based on integrated view of the customer behavior. many organizations are starting to do that. So 64% in this case. So you'd be surprised as to how many organizations are now starting to pull together, from customer service behavior to historical behavior and so on. So the numbers are changing rapidly from 35%. I would say this was done in 2011. We recently ran a survey with our customers. The numbers are, are 50-50 now. So organizations are starting to look at segmentation, targeting customers against their behavior. So if you want to put a personalization strategy into practice, again, start with the customer context, map out the buying life cycle, develop the content that matters, and then pick the right technology to deliver the content and engage the customer in real time. You can think about, microsegments that your prospects belong to and how you target and elicit a higher response. If you get the right technology, you can actually target those that messaging at the right time. So here's an example, of an existing customer of ours. If you were to visit their website, if you were to navigate to one of their pages, for example, and show interest in a particular product, they will actually read that context. They will understand that you're interested, you're probably evaluating them, and once you return to their website, the homepage changes. They start to target more specific information, in this case in the banner, towards you. So this is just a small example of how you can drive personalization by reading the digital footprint, by understanding what users are seeing and targeting information which is relevant to them, in this case changing the homepage banner. And here's an example of someone's an existing customer, showing them information around the login screen, so there's the customers present the login screen to log into their portal, for example. So if you were to map out the messages, then from a personalization standpoint, you can offer different offerings to different segments on the same page of the website. So we talked about context. We talked about the integrated demand generation capabilities that you need to build around your website to drive conversion. The next area to consider is call to action, and this links to testing. What's important, even in a B2B context, is you need to merchandise your products. Whether you have physical products, you have notional products, you have services, you need to merchandise what you have. And if you do that, if you have assets on your website, for example, white papers and so on, you need to create, make them seem significant so that people would be willing to share information to get those assets. And once you do that and you have simple and persuasive content, you need to have engaging call to action. So getting users to act on information and getting them to convert is quite important. So use simple forms. I've seen forms with 20 fields. There's no need for that. Just use simple forms, get the minimum amount of information you need to engage with them, and through progressively engaging with them, if you get lead information and start to nurture them through email automation, you can start to build on that and collect even more information. There's simple tactics that would drive leads from a conversion standpoint. So if you have the right call to action, you work on your page layouts, you offer promotions, you have the right page copy, you will find that your conversion will improve, your relevance will improve. So focusing on those 3 to 4 things at the top will help you drive conversion. So the most important thing you can do on your site, believe it or not, is just continuously test. Just, there's A/B testing, multivariate testing. There are many forms of testing. But if you're able to run tests on your website, you will see conversion. Most organizations are not doing adequate tests. Here's an example, or here's a statistic from a consultancy that indicates that 61% do less than 5 tests per month. So most organizations are not testing enough. And if you start to test messages, test new pages, new layouts, and you continuously use the tools that you have at your disposal to test, you will find that you will drive more conversion. You'll hit something that will work, Over a period of time, you'll drive engagement with it. Over time, that perhaps that messaging will stop working, then you'll test with something else, and just continuously improve. And it's a lot simpler than organizations think it is. So testing should be a key part of your strategy. And it's all about, just testing and testing more. So we talked about A/B testing. You can conduct customer journey analysis, multivariate testing, user testing, segmentation analysis, copy optimization. There's a variety of testing you can do. I would say start small if you're not testing at all. Many organizations aren't, as we saw in that statistic in the slide before. Start with A/B testing, simple testing. Start with looking at analytics and start to think about, come up with some hypotheses around what would work and start to test. You'll see results fairly quickly, and you can start to then use that conversion rate. So, but if you do that, you will see conversion. As eMarketer reported in a recent survey, if you test, you will see over 70% reported an improvement in conversion. So it will work if you do it as a discipline, as a practice. So the methods organizations are using to drive conversion, a lot of A/B testing. A/B testing is simple, so we highly recommend it. A lot of copy optimization, customer journey analysis. Again, that will start to really get you to think about where the drop-offs occur, how do buyers buy, and so on. Usability testing, competitive benchmarking. So if you were to just pick a few of these and start to get going with them, especially A/B testing, highly recommended, you will start to see conversion occur on your site. So let's talk about technologies that can enable you to drive conversions. The technologies, there's a variety of technologies around your website and that whole ecosystem that can help you really drive conversions. Analytics is critical. If your website does not have the right analytics tool, you're not going to have the right insight to make any decisions around what changes you have to make from the website, what are users actually doing to make any decisions around conversion. Having the right content management system is going to be critical for you to actually drive the website and drive conversion. And there's a variety of other capabilities such as the website search, which is going to be used to drive conversion, content targeting technology, and so on. So these are some of the tools that get used, especially around the CMS or the content management system that runs your website. They become critical to drive conversion. So content management systems are critical. I think tools such as Electron, Sitecore, they really help organizations to enable you to actually drive not only the right experience, the right content to the user, but drive personalization to actually help you to convert traffic to customers. So having the right CMS is going to be critical to your demand generation strategy. So what we're seeing in the industry now with CMSs are getting highly commoditized. They are focusing more on acquisition and driving personalization. So from a demand generation standpoint, it should bode well to giving tools to marketers to actually drive conversion. Site search is a critical capability, especially for B2B marketers. A lot of you are product marketers, have a lot of information on your products and or services, and quite often you're trying to get that information to the buyer. So the buyer would use search on your website to find information. Having the right search tools to allow them to get to the information as quickly as possible will actually help them to become more engaged and drive conversion. Analytics, we talked about analytics, won't stress on it more, but it is absolutely crucial. So having the right analytics tool is an investment, in some cases not a huge investment, that will help you actually understand what buyers are doing and how they make decisions. And if you can actually get your CMS, CRM, and marketing automation to work together, you will start to see a customer context emerge that, again, you will start to see how buyers buy, what their behavior is, and then you can actually use the CMS to drive conversion. So these technologies end up working together to actually enable you to drive conversion. So at this stage, we've covered quite a few topics, all the way from talking about integrated demand generation, to context, to testing, to the right technologies to drive conversion. So at this stage, I'll open up open up the webinar for questions. Any questions at this stage? I'll give you a few minutes to actually ask questions, and I'm sure some I can see some questions have flown in already. So feel free to send the questions to the organizer. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, Rahul, we have few questions. The first one is, how does nurturing work? How does website help with the nurturing process?
Well, that's great. That's a really good question. Quite often, I see organizations really think about the nurturing process being managed by email automation tools like Marketo, Eloqua, Silverpop. There's quite a few out there now. However, I think the website plays a critical role because website is that one asset which has all the information that allows a buyer to make that informed decision. So the website can do a few things to enable nurturing. One, integrate with your email marketing capabilities that you use to nurture. So when your traffic gets driven to your website, they can drop the traffic at the right content and engage the user. Two, you can actually use personalization so that when a buyer returns to your website, a prospect is looking for information, you can personalize the information to them, get them the right information at the right time. So if you were to do a couple of those things, you'll start to nurture the prospect towards conversion. Next question.
Yes, Rahul. The next question is, how do you track quality of the lead?
That's a great question. Quite often people get caught up in, I see a life cycle. Initially organizations make these huge investments in the CMS and get the website up and ready. And as soon as that occurs, quite often then the ROI question comes up. So it's all about how do we get more leads. And once you start to get those leads, and in a B2B context, your sales force perhaps starts to complain that leads are not of high quality. And then quality issue appears. So there's this journey that we see organizations go through, and ultimately it comes down to the right quality of leads that will enable the sales force to prioritize their time and then act on it in the right way. So in that context, it's quite important to, one, use tools that can help you come up with a methodology to define what the quality of lead might be. So for example, you could define that by, if you have a certain type of target customer, what does that look like? Give it a certain type of score. How well engaged an individual is on the site, give that another score. So use that scoring model, and there's quite a few available online, to actually come up with some kind of a scoring mechanism that defines that it's the right type of customer, they are engaged with you, they read pieces of content, they're giving you buying signals, so that you can actually turn them over to sales to actually act on those leads. So quality of leads are quite often determined by who the right buyer is, how engaged they are. And if you can measure that and have a scoring methodology around that, you're going to actually do a pretty good job at getting to a point where your sales force is getting the right leads at the right time. Any other questions?
Yeah, we have one last question. Which CMSs are best aligned with driving lead generation?
So the CMS space is full of products. The ones that we use a lot include the likes of Electron, Sitecore, Drupal. There's CMSs, some CMSs do a good job with personalization, with integrating with analytics, allowing marketers to have the levers and the tools to actually target content and do testing. So the CMSs out there that have a suite available that allows you to do testing, allows you to do personalization, allows you to track analytics, perhaps integrate with an analytics system, would be some tools to consider for your website. So with that, it seems those are the questions we had, and we're going to be out of time in a few minutes. We encourage you to reach out to us and send questions either to there'll be an email that was going to be sent out, but also you can always reach out to us through our website. be an email sent out with my information. So feel free to reach out, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. I thank you for attending the webinar, and with that, we will close the webinar now. Thank you.